Make sure you get the back.
I'll bring one. I'll bring one here.
No.
Hang on. What?
Yes, sir.
Get a date whenever in the office. We're talking about the paperwork. The state and paperwork is really
Good, how are you?
Thanks for sending it to me.
whatever read that you have.
Filing act. These are all large scale.
Someone who came across being a user of software
Sorry, how are you? That was the wrong one.
I thought I was in a town event. I didn't realize.
No.
No, potatoes.
There's some people that
Looking for it.
She doesn't have a mic. She doesn't have a mic. You guys got a mic.
Oh, we're sneaking that way. Yeah, no, this is the.
Pull that out. Pull it out. But I have to.
Yeah, Mark, speaks voice. His turn. Hey, Mark.
Yeah, if you could put that up to the. So it's gonna run. Keith, I don't want you reading only one side of the story. All right, Mark.
Where I found like
Yeah, use range required. Either a type 1 action or least required.
In case you don't have enough.
Yeah. Well, the short, yeah, the short. I was gonna wear it.
It's not needed.
Hey, Mark, Harry Willis book with you? Was it the short story?
Yes, I do.
Excuse me. I know that there's.
I have one as well.
What's that?
I have one as well.
Okay. You don't have one? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
we need that back.
Yeah.
Keep stale stuff tomorrow.
Look at one thing that says. Okay.
Well, that I know.
Somewhere in the office.
Yeah, what happened was.
Well, I'm not sure for a long time, or we can do the, at the state, make this like the me, just be medium, or I'm not sure if it requires black, using a full EAF, or we can go to and then go, so check on each thing. But if it's a full EAF, according to this flow chart, we could actually get to the same place anyway. I'm not certain. I'm going to look up to Harry Phillips thing here because he talked about it. It could be including a structure that on the national street requires it to have and it's also what about the left prepared this year?
Yeah, ring the bell. I don't know where Joe is.
Oh, yeah, 7:30, the show.
I'm looking at
He's got it. For the first part of this, Joe has to excuse himself anyhow.
All right. So we'll,
Start the meeting with
Okay, ready? Mark Lodi.
here.
Gary Guglielmetti.
Here.
Keith Johnson. Joe Michaels. And Golf Reese.
Here.
Beginning of the meeting will be continuation of the public hearing for the Casper. The beginning of the meeting will be continuation of the public hearing for the Casper Monterey Road. Asking for an area use variance. Harry, did you want to start the presentation as to what you needed to do or what you're requesting?
do you want me to reiterate that whole document, or would you like to do it?
it would make more sense to you.
Okay, well, I was charged with supplying the documentation for the criteria for variance. And I've put together 5 pages of information here. Dear Shandaken zoning board members, following information is to provide the necessary criteria required for granting of the requested use variance for the above identified Catskill Mountain Railroad site plan. First, and before addressing the variance itself, the Catskill Mountain Railroad Company, Inc. was formed as a railroad corporation in the state of New York pursuant to Section 5 of New York State Railroad Law on March 7, 1983. See attached certificate. On that basis, I would like to quote New York State Railroad Law, which supersedes town law in this matter. New York State Railroad Law number 8, additional powers conferred. Subject to the limitations and requirements of the chapter and the public service law, every railroad corporation, without limitation of the powers given by the business corporation law, shall have power, and number 5, buildings and stations, to erect and maintain all necessary and convenience buildings, stations, fixtures, and machinery for the accommodation and use of its passengers, freight, and business. The law is attached. New York State Railroad Law number 17, acquisition entitled to real property, additions, betterments, and facilities. All real property required by any railroad corporation for the construction, maintenance, and accommodation of its railroad shall be deemed to be required as a public use and may be acquired by such corporation. Every railroad corporation shall have the power from time to time to make and use upon or in connection with any other railroad, either owned or operated by it, such additions, betterments, and facilities as may be necessary or convenient for the better management, maintenance, or operation of any such railroad. Based on New York State Railroad Law superseding town law, it would appear that Catskill Mountain Railroad is exempt from the variance requirements in this case. Beyond that, and just because I figured I'd do a complete job of my homework, the following is also what we believe justifiable criteria for the approval of the variance request beyond New York State Railroad law. First criteria, that the property is incapable of earning a reasonable return of its initial investment if used for any of the allowed uses in the district, and actual dollars and cents proof is needed to substantiate that. I made a note here, the 2 parcels which comprise the site plan properties, 1433 and 52, which is zoned Hamlet Residential, and 1413-329, which is zoned residential 3 acres. A lot line adjustment to combine the 2 parcels into one is required by the planning board. As the more restrictive zoning will apply to the newly combined parcel, the following identified permitted uses will be based on residential 3 acres zoning as described in the Shandaken zoning code. Combined parcels will equal a total of 2.2 acres. A. For many years, the Catskill Mountain Railroad has used the property for the same use as is requested in the site plan application, which is the storage, maintenance, and repair of our equipment, primarily being the use of the scenic train. The property used for and in conjunction with the scenic train operation has a substantial rate of return by generating a ridership of 12,129 people for a total revenue of $147,428 in 2015. One of the permitted uses, or a number of the permitted uses, being 1-family, 2-family, and mobile home dwellings, based on the market value of the property as residential being mostly surrounded by the Empire State Railway Museum's property, and with its potential for flooding. The saleable value of the property would be $22,000, or $14,000 less than the initial purchase price paid for on the properties by the railroad was $36,000. I have a letter attached from Ruth Gale Realty, which gave me a saleable quote on that parcel, on the two parcels. Other permitted uses in the R3 district that do not offer reasonable rate of return on the initial investment. Number one, conservation uses, including public parks and public recreation areas. Really, it's not applicable. It requires a 100-foot setback from any lot line and a minimum of 5 acres. So that really doesn't work. Agricultural use, including keeping of fowl or animals in accordance with section 116-30, minimum of 3 acres, except fowl, unless our neighbors would want us to raise chickens in it. Government buildings and uses, non-proprietary functions. Once again, the sale of the property for such use does not offer a reasonable rate of return. We don't see the government facilities looking to set up a piece of an operation there. Class 1 home occupation occurring wholly within a dwelling. There's no dwelling on the property, so that can't happen. 5, accessory use or structure incidental to permitted or special use permit and located on the same lot, not otherwise specified herein. There is no existing permitted use for an accessory structure. Stables for horses or non-commercial purposes, a minimum of 3 acres. Second criteria, that the property is being affected by unique or highly uncommon circumstances. Property has historically pre-existed as a railroad yard since the 1870s and predates the Shandaken zoning code by approximately 100 years. Catskill Mountain Railroad has also continued that same use for many years as a railroad yard for storage, repair, and maintenance of their equipment and trains. B, property is adjacent to the Ulster County Railroad right-of-way and mostly surrounded by properties owned by the Empire State Railway Museum, a historic railroad tourist destination. The next closest building for a proposed shop is the Phoenicia Station owned by the ESRM. C, residential zoning that was applied when the Shandaken Code was created in 1996 was not conducive to the property or in keeping with the surrounding uses when it was formed. Conrail operated trains up until 1978. 3, that the variance, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. A, property is surrounded by the Ulster County Railroad right-of-way, mostly surrounded by properties of the Empire State Railway Museum, reiterating the same paragraph for basically the same reasons. The general character of the surrounding area is rare. B, character of immediate surrounding properties which are owned by the SRA are based on railroad history, railroad infrastructure, all of which are in keeping with our proposed use of the railroad yard and the maintenance shop. The modernization of the existing CMRR yard and facilities would also enhance the SRM's appeal to the interested public as a tourist destination. C, as the bulk of residential use in the neighborhood is located on Lower High Street on the south side of the Empire State Railway Museum, and the CMRR's property is located on the end of Station Road on the north side of the ESRM, there would be very little visual impact. Changes would not be substantial, as the same uses have existed in the neighborhood previously. D, most of the adjoining property that surrounds the parcel with the proposed railroad yard is unimproved. 4, that the hardship is not self-created. A, the operation of the Catskill Mountain Railroad for the past 33 years without a maintenance shop is a hardship for the following reasons. Number 1, all of our work is weather dependent, restricting and limiting our operation. 2, the lack of adequate shop has cost us months of lost time, colder months when we could be working indoors. This is when it would be best suited to our required maintenance when we are out of our operating season and not running trains. 3, performing our maintenance and servicing our equipment has always been more difficult to try and perform our work without any impacts on the environment. A closed facility would allow us to better control potential contaminants. B, CMRR has leased the Catskill Branch Railroad right-of-way from Ulster County for the past 33 years for the operation of its historic tourist railroad. Our property, which is the proposed site of our shop, is adjacent to the county railroad. As our current lease with Ulster County for the use of the railroad is about to expire, and there is no certainty that we will be granted an extension, a hardship exists in where to store and maintain our equipment and trains. Ulster County has instructed us to remove all of our equipment and vacate the railroad right-of-way by May 31st, 2016. Thank you for your consideration. Respectfully submitted.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alan, you're up. Please state your name first. Congratulations.
I'm hard of hearing, so I talk loud. Okay, is this okay? You hear me? Okay, hi, my name is Alan Flegel. I live across the street from the railroad yard on Lower High Street. I live directly across the street in the little house that was once the conductor's house, I'm told. When we first moved here in the 1980s, the railroad was a wonderful resource to town. We used to ride the train and hear Earl Pardini and the Slide Mountain Band play on the train while we enjoyed our ride, a family affair. We rode the train often. Later, about 13 years ago, we bought the land belonging to Helmer Ring, the property right next door to our house. The property had several acres across the street on the railroad side. After we bought the property, we found out the Ring family promised the land to the railroad, although no legal papers were at our closing. Since we only wanted the land next door to our house, we honored the deal and gave the land to the railroad. We liked the railroad and the museum and what they're doing, and we were taking part in it. Today, when I look outside, I don't see the same sight. Instead of a cute little inviting station, I see trains lined up that look like they need a lot of work. I counted 22 cars just now before I came. At most, in the early days, there might have been 8 or 10 seemingly usable train cars. Today, the railroad yard looks like a graveyard for trains. And I think that's what they want. They want to fix up the trains and run them. They want to expand what they've been doing. This expansion already has the yard looking like a budding industry. Having a for-private industry across the street in our residential neighborhood will change the nature of our small Lower High Street quiet homestead. Moving to Phoenicia all those years ago got us off Canal Street in the Bowery next to the Manhattan Bridge to our quiet village, the forever wild Catskill area of New York State. We love it here. It seems to me that the railroad already has is sufficient to keep interested people busy and entertained. At one time, the railroad was necessary. It's not the case today. So I must say I'm against the expansion the railroad seeks. I'm for the railroad that provides rides on the tracks it already has. I would not like to see any more buildings or tracks laid. I'd like to see the area not be reclassified industrial. Keep the train as it is, no variances.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Hi, I'm Annick Taylor and I live in Pugh
house is down from Allen and on Lower High Street, and right across the street from me, I can see the trains that I brought in pictures of. Last month, I brought in 30-something letters from concerned neighbors about the character of the neighborhood. Here's some more, just a few. The Catskill Mountain Railroad has been court-ordered to vacate the Kingston Yard. Their lease with the county will expire on May 31st. If their lease is not renewed, it would appear that their only legal option to store their equipment would be Phoenicia. If a use variance is granted, even if they claim to limit their equipment, it would be tempting to bring the cars here. Once the variance is granted, it would be hard to monitor or restrict that. From their own website, I have a roster of their equipment. We were told 14 cars, but I see a locomotive roster, which is 5 locomotives, among them a 39 and 50-ton locomotive. The rolling stock roster has 24 cars, among them several 40 and 50 feet. Maintenance of way equipment roster had 15, among them an excavator, 2 backhoes, 2 pneumatic tampers, a dump truck. And it says that they're looking for more. This adds up to 29 cars and 15 maintenance machines. Where will all of these go? Okay, then I have pictures of their equipment. One second. The legal test for granting a use variance is so difficult that it is almost never granted. I urge you to consider this. During the February 17th meeting, there was a long presentation by the railroad regarding floods, plans for appearance, limitations on storage. But once a use variance is granted, the door will be open to many changes that cannot easily be monitored or prevented. The railroad also said that if they lose their lease for the tracks, they might sell off their equipment. They could also sell their property. If a property with an industrial use is sold, the possibilities are open for any number of industrial uses in the floodplain in a residential neighborhood that could deeply change the character of our town forever. The town would not have control over how that property would be used, as the use variance would already be put into place. A use variance would change the property forever. Please consider the ramifications of that and the effects it could have on our creek and our town. We rely on you to protect the character of our town, along with the health, safety, and welfare of the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Photograph, you next.
Good evening, everybody. Rod Butterfast. A couple of things I wanted to point out to you. One of the things is Section 9 of the Railroad Law. In order for those provisions which Mr. Jamieson brought to your attention to be operative, there is, and Section 8 starts with the word subject to the limitations. Okay, lawyers jump on that. The limitations are found in Section 9, and I handed that up to you. Section 9 requires that before those powers Mr. Jamieson brought to your attention are available, there must be first a publication of the Certificate of Incorporation, and then a Certificate of Convenience and Necessity must be issued by the Commissioner of the Public Service Commission. So when I heard that there was a proposition here that the Catskill Mountain Railroad was somehow a public utility, that it had the right of condemnation, my head began to spin. So there's Section 9, and that brings some sense to the whole proposition. I think it's kind of far-fetched for us to think that the Catskill Mountain Railroad would get the permission of the Public Service Commission to have the zoning changed in the town of Phoenicia, in the town of Shandaken, so that they could put up a facility which is against the zoning law, and for which they would have to justify everything that they're doing. The first step is to get past you folks, and I'm suggesting to you that a use variance here